Welcome everybody watching, and this is another of our DOBBS on Saturday Night Live streams where we have guests and we talk about various topics. For those of you new to us, DOBBS stands for Doctors Only Bulletin Board, and we are the oldest and largest online community for doctors. For those of you doctors who haven't joined us yet, the membership is free. All you have to do is go to dobbs.my, take the registration link, which is slash OSR. Okay, registration is free. There's a lot of active discussion in our Facebook and Telegram groups. And we also have this educational content and live streams on YouTube. So if you can, please help us grow by liking this video if you appreciate it, and also please subscribe to our channel. So tonight's episode will be featuring my friend and colleague, Dato Dr. Amar Singh, and we are having a very interesting talk today because Amar is going to talk to us about something very pertinent in our ongoing pandemic. Still not over yet until the fat lady sings. So this is about air quality. So he's going to talk to us about this very important issue about ventilation. Okay, I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions. So I'm going to welcome Amar. Hi, Amar.
Hi, Alan. Thank you for inviting me.
How's the air in Ipoh?
Oh, I think it's good. It rained today. That makes a difference. Yes.
Yeah, it's been cooler here as well. It was hot last week, but it's been a bit more rainy, thank goodness. So air quality is not bad. But we had a lot of chats and discussion about air quality, air filtration, purification. I think there's a lot of concerns because although most of us are all vaccinated now, but it's not a 100% protection against COVID infection. So any precaution or anything which can help should be employed, I think. So I think you're going to give us lots of tips and tricks on what to do when it comes to, for those doctors who are in clinics with enclosed environment, with the air circulation may be a concern. So I think all of us are waiting to hear what you have to say. I think you're going to summarize it all for us, right, Amar?
Yes, Ellen, and I hope that those who are not doctors listening in also would use some of these ideas for schools, for our restaurants, for offices. I think for any location, even for a religious venue where people are meeting, ventilation is right now the missing element in our approach against COVID in the country.
Yeah. I remember long before when the pandemic was just starting, we weren't even sure it was airborne. There was so much debate on whether it was airborne. Now I think it's conclusively shown it is airborne, and we have to pay attention to ventilation. Because, I mean, those of us are fortunate enough to have a place with windows, open windows, fan. I think that would be the simplest way. But a lot of us work in offices or environments where it's just central air conditioning, no windows. So that's a concern. Yeah. Okay. So I think without further ado, I want to hand the stage to you, Amar. So perhaps we can move on with your slides or your presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Ellen, and good evening to everybody who's listening in. Allow me to share my screen so that we could have a discussion. Ellen, can you see that slides? Can, Ellen?
Yeah, I'll bring myself on stage. Yeah, your slides are fine. So I will remove myself on stage and I'll leave you to the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about ventilation. You can see I put ventilation. When I want to emphasize something, I usually repeat it 3 times. And we really need to improve indoor ventilation in this COVID era. And I think this should last beyond COVID as well. So basically what we're trying to do is reduce our airborne transmission indoors. And the talk I'm going to give is applicable, as I said, to offices, to clinics, to schools, hospitals, religious centers. The one area that may be difficult are transport spaces, but I might say a few words about it, what to do in a bus, in an LRT and stuff like that. I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, Ellen, especially, who Dr. Ellen Tay started the DOBBS group, which has been an enormous resource for all of us meeting together and thinking. And lots of ideas are posted there by many of my colleagues, articles, even devices we discussed there. And I especially like to thank Dr. Lee and Dr. Wong, who are especially active in posting ideas about ventilation. I also had a discussion with Dr. Letch, who's a physician, and had some slides that he shared with me. I've had some chats with engineers who have provided ideas. But finally, I'd like to say that much of my thinking has come from a lot of very good articles, discussions, and research online. I'm still on a learning curve, but I think we're reaching some place where we know what to do. Now, I'm going to talk sizably about how to fix ventilation, but in case you find that it's too much for you, at the end, I'm going to give you two very simple methods on how we can actually do it, operationalize it for your room. So, if you struggle, wait for that, and that will give us the ideas how to move forward. Now, I've got some notes for you. This is a bit.ly link which Ellen would have posted in the YouTube location, and there's also a QR code that you can scan. And look for the file. There are many files inside that link, but look for the one on ventilation and air filtration. I've updated that. It's 5 pages long. Lots of links inside there, and links to where you can get more resources and material. I've got other files there that may be of value to you, like how to get children back to school safely, children and vaccination, safe workplaces, and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk first very, very briefly about why we should bother. Most of us are vaccinated. Why should we bother with ventilation? Secondly, the chunk of the talk is going to talking about reducing reducing airborne transmission indoors, what method works, how to bring in fresh air, how to use portable air cleaners, which ones work, which CO2 monitors reliable, tools and calculators. And as I said, two very simple tools on how to do this. And finally, a note about maintaining vigilance indoors, even if we can improve our ventilation. So let's start off with why bother. Most of us are vaccinated. We bother because there's Delta variant breakthrough, which happens in vaccinated people. Currently, the rate of breakthrough is probably in the range of 30 to 50%, which means, at least half of us, I suspect personally, all of us are going to get infected at some point, just over time. If you look at this purple line here from this Lancet study published recently, that over time, the duration, up to 4 months from vaccination with Pfizer, 2 doses, about almost 60% of people had a breakthrough. So breakthroughs doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get very ill. And you can see even in this study, they showed that 93% were protected against hospital admission. But it does mean that you're going to get a risk of having a viral breakthrough. Okay? And you look even right now from our COVID now data, you can see this black line are cases, unvaccinated. The light green line are single dose. The dark green line are 2 doses. And you can see the majority of our cases right now are vaccinated people. And that's to be expected because 72% of the population is vaccinated. So you can see already now this is happening, that there's breakthrough happening in our vaccinated population because we've been vaccinated for some time now. And we're moving to an endemic living, and we hope it's sort of like a low-grade endemic, but actually it's going to be cycles. You can see that happening in other countries. UK is going berserk right now. We are starting to go back into an upswing slowly. So it's going to be a cyclic epidemic sort of situation as we learn to live with the virus. So this is why we need to worry about ventilation. And if I summarize for you in the reality, here's the summary for you. Here are people who are unvaccinated who are adults. Here are vaccinated adults. And here are unvaccinated children, which we need to worry about as well because they're also going to get ill. So previously, our hospitalization risk was 1 in 10 if you're infected. Now it's about 2 in 100, dropped almost tenfold. Deaths were 1 to 2 per 100. Now is 1 to 2 per 1,000, looking at Singapore data. Long COVID is 2 to 3 per 10. Nobody's really sure what long COVID is like with vaccinated, but Israeli data suggests still 20%, but the French data suggested a very, very shortened duration. Okay, so even if you're vaccinated, you still have a risk of getting ill and dying and having long COVID. And of course, children have a risk of dying and also have long COVID. So this is why we bother. So let's talk about what you came to listen to about reducing airborne transmission indoors. So I'm not going to go through the data anymore about proving airborne spread of this virus because there's enormous amount of data. But if you're still uncertain, I advise you to read this recent release of a publication which looked, it's a systematic review looking at all the studies available. And in 12 of the available studies, there was airborne transmission beyond 2 meters. So we know that the viral particles last for a long time in the air indoors. 1 to 2 meters indoors distancing of little value unless you improve ventilation. So it's the primary mechanism of spread indoors, not so much surface decontamination, but air. Okay, and in this review of the studies, they found that insufficient air replacement, recirculating airflow, and singing were some of the factors that increased the long distance airborne transmission. In 9 of these 12 studies, the people who spread it were asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. So we cannot assume that our colleagues working around us don't have the infection. So there are 3 key mechanisms to fix the air indoors. You can mix these mechanisms. They don't have to be independent. They can be used together. The first is ventilation, bringing in fresh air. This is the best of the lot, okay, because you dilute the viral particles and you wash them out. The second is filtration. What you do is you reduce, or you actually you remove the viral particles from the air in the inborn area. You need a mechanical device for this. And finally, sterilization, where actually you kill the bug in the air. So these are the 3 mechanisms. Let me talk about each of them. Let's start with ventilation, bringing in the fresh air. So as I said, this is the best approach, but it only works if you have a room which connected to the outdoors. So you need windows and doors connected to the outdoors. You could say that for a closed room, we could bring piped air in, but then it's a lot of renovation work. Your target should be fresh air exchange 5 to 6 times per hour per room. Okay, why do we want this? Because the data says so. There's good data from the US showing that if you air exchange about 5 times, you reduce your COVID risk about 90%. If you do 6 times, it's about 95%. So right now, the color coding in the US, 5 to 6 is excellent. 6 is desirable. So I think we should actually go ahead straight and aim for 6. So our target, including the Harvard target, is 5 to 6 exchange of air per room. The entire air in the room is exchanged 5 to 6 times per hour. Our Department of Occupational and Safety Health says 10 liters per second per person is another way you could calculate this, but I find it's a harder one to use for thinking. So that's our target. Remember, this is our target for any room that you're working in. Okay. So how do you measure that or monitor that? The simplest way is to use a CO2 monitor. The carbon dioxide monitor is a proxy indicator of particles in the air. The carbon dioxide goes up, then obviously air is not moving, and you expect that the viral volume in that room be higher. And the target is to keep it below 600. Some people say 800. I think 600 is a better value, but somewhere in that target range is what we're looking at. Okay? And of course, if you test the monitor, it should be done when you have the expected number of people in the room, not when the room is empty. So you should test at different times, but the peak number of people is when this should be effective. And so you need to test at different times, and you need to monitor constantly. I think I have to say this, even though it's common sense. Don't overcrowd. Don't overcrowd your room and your airspace, your cubicle, your lifts. Don't overcrowd them because there's so much that the ventilation can do for you. It needs to be, even if it's optimized for a certain number of people in the room. Okay. So which CO2 monitor should we buy? There's this lovely review from Spain. It's about 81 pages long. And I've given a link in the document for you to go and have a look at. The best of the best is ARNet 4 detectors, but they cost quite a bit. I don't think the average one of us is going to buy that, but I suggest that hospitals, big businesses should invest in these high quality monitors, private hospitals especially. Okay, but for us, the second best is the K-Moon brand. It's a small portable air detector. It costs less than 100, and a lot of doctors I know are buying this one. Now, again, there are fake ones online. I suggest you go to the official store for K-Moon, which is available on Shopee, and buy straight from that store, then you know it's right. I must say that I've also seen expensive monitors that not only measure CO2, but also measure PM2, which is particulate material in the air, and offer alarms. And they're centralized. They're wired alarms, monitors that go from every room to a central location where someone is monitoring the air quality, both the CO2 and particulate matter in a room. And maybe long term, these are things that we should consider in new buildings. But right now, consider a K-Moon portable CO2 monitor for yourself. Okay. So how to make it happen in bringing fresh air? Obviously, you open the doors and windows to optimize natural ventilation. This, of course, means temperature is going to go up. Okay. Why I'm saying it's going to go up? Because you can't actually leave your air conditioning on. Air conditioning by default recirculates air. That is how it works. Okay. The split unit air cons 100% recirculate your air. They don't bring in any fresh air. The central units, if they're set up right, can bring in fresh air. But many central units also recirculate air. So the only way you can keep a central unit on is if you use a HEPA filter so that it's filtering out the particles inside. But HEPA filters into an existing unit may not be the easiest thing to put in. You have to talk to engineers whether it's possible or not. Some units don't work very well, some have no space for it. So basically, you have to open your doors and windows and turn off your air conditioning. That's what you got to do. So imagine a restaurant doing this, remember your office doing this, okay? Thirdly, you can use mechanical ventilation to improve your air exchange. You don't just expect a breeze to come in. You actually either suck air out or you suck air in. If you're sucking air in, we recommend that you consider using some HEPA filters, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But you can stand a stand fan. Sorry, let me show that. You can put a stand fan at the window and suck air out. Okay, or you actually can suck air in this way. This is a window-mounted exhaust fan with a MERS 13 filters. I'll talk about those in a moment. I find this going to be very useful at the ground level. If you're working at the ground level, you don't want somebody's passing by, maybe your classroom or your office or clinic at the ground level, and people are passing by. You don't want to suck in their viral particles. Then you put this with a HEPA or MERS filter at the back, and you then can suck in safe air. This, by the way, is a glass door that somebody has cut and put in a plywood and then put in a filter to make it useful for a particular classroom. Okay, but this is the basic to suck air out. Now you need to be careful with these. Whenever you put it there, you must avoid a cross draft by the fan. Okay, if there's a draft in your room moving from one person to another, then you're transmitting aerosols one person to another, and you got to watch the draft in the room. Okay, as I said, long term, we could consider renovating closed rooms and bringing fresh air, but there's a lot of expensive work going on there. If you're using a toilet as well, please make sure there's an exhaust fan and it's on all the time, not just when you use it. So there's a lot of good work. This is good, again, Spanish team that's doing good work and talking about how your CO2 changes with different situations in the room. Let me show you the better diagram, I think. Here's a classroom. And you could imagine this is a waiting room in the clinic, for example, or in a restaurant. As the number of people went up, the CO2 went up. There's 21 students in this class. The CO2 is beyond the tolerable levels. Opening a door, it leveled off. When they opened the windows and the door, it came down. So they just use a CO2 monitor to watch what is happening. Okay, but activity levels may change. And if they do things in the classroom, which is more active, CO2 levels may go up. So you can monitor this. And this is what we should do to bring in fresh air. Okay, all right, using these devices, I think. I don't think any of us can just leave an open door and window. We probably have to use some mechanical ventilation to bring in good air. So the ideal, of course, would be have a mechanical ventilation which is on the ceiling. So you bring air down and then it flushed outward. That would be the great. But again, this is costly. There may be cheaper ways to do this, but right now you've got to hack your ceiling is a problem. Okay, the cheaper ones are the ones I'm talking about, where you have a device which blows air right through. Okay. Right. Now there are some people using plastic barriers in rooms between people in a classroom, maybe even in a clinic. They are no longer recommended between seats and spaces. One CDC study showed no reduce in infection. One publication in Science Journal showed that it had an increased risk of COVID, and one Japanese study showed that it increased infection in a poorly ventilated hospital office. Sorry. Ventilation and masks are far more powerful than putting up the screens. I show this particularly because it's our parliament, and I'm not sure ventilation has been fixed in our parliament, and definitely we need to get rid of these plastic screens they put on. It hinders ventilation and airflow, so don't put in any plastic screens. The only one you may want to consider is maybe your reception counter if the nurse airspace is separate from the waiting room airspace. So that's the first one, ventilation. And as I told you at the end, I will talk about how to operationalize this in an average room. Second one is filtration, where we reduce the viral particles. We take them out of the room, and this is a reasonably good mechanism and very useful for rooms without outdoor connections, which many of us will have. Many GPs, many restaurants, many higher end offices, all would not have a room with outdoor connection. Again, our target is the same. We want to exchange the fresh air 5 to 6 times per hour per room. Now, here, the CO2 monitor may not be useful anymore. If your room is no longer connected to the outside, it's not useful because you are not actually changing the air in the room. So the CO2 is not going to be your useful monitor. Okay, all right. Notice that the air conditioning in this room is still going to be on. So you probably have to use a calculation method to figure this one out. You probably cannot use your CO2 monitor. Having said that, you can mix and match. And if you had an open room with open doors and windows and we're adding a portable air cleaner to your system, then your CO2 monitor will still be effective. So to reduce viral particles, to remove viral particles in the air, we need portable air cleaners. Now, there are a lot of different names of this, air purifiers, whatever. I choose to use this name because I want to use a neutral name, portable air cleaners. It must have either MERS filters 13, 14 and higher, or HEPA filter. So what are these things? The MERS is the minimum efficiency reporting value. Okay, and at 13, you remove about 75% of the particles that are 0.3 to 1 micron. Okay, that's not really the best. The best is when you go to HEPA, where you're looking at 99% particle removal. So all HEPA filters are MERV 17 and higher. Basically, it's the same scale, just that they call it HEPA. So I would suggest you move straight to a HEPA filter. Unless you're working in a very large setting, things are expensive, maybe in a school setting, then you use the MERVs 13 and 14. In an open environment, this is better. In a closed environment, I would go for the HEPA filters. Okay, so either MERVs or HEPA. So we're using portable air cleaners. Okay, minimum is that. You must check your filtration capacity. How much air can it remove at one time? And because you may need more than one unit per room. Okay, you need to check your noise levels because these things can be noisy. So you may not be operate at highest level. You may need to operate at moderate. So that again changes the amount of air that can be exchanged. Okay, most of the devices sold commercially will tell you this. You need to check how long filters last because that's a maintenance cost. If filters are very expensive, you have to change them very frequently, then maybe don't buy that unit. Most commercial ones last about 9 months. I will talk about a DIY one in a moment. Okay, and avoid units that blow out air horizontally because they create draft. You want units that blow air up upward. Okay, if they're horizontal units and you've got no other choice, then you probably need to aim them at the wall so you don't blow at anybody. Okay, this is lovely people from Melbourne, University of Melbourne, who've done the work for us. They've looked at all the HEPA air cleaners, or the portable air cleaners, only with HEPA, mind you, not with lower MERS ratings, and they've compared the price and the clean air delivery rate. Okay, and tell you, so we have something called the CADA, clean air delivery rate. That's the value that you should look at. Okay, and of course, as I said, the noise and the cost and must be HEPA. So you can look here. This is lovely device. I'm not promoting any device here, but I'm going to tell you specifics here. This is Xiaomi Pro device here, which is quite cheap and has a very high CADA. Okay, other Xiaomi device there, a Philips device there, a Samsung device there. So these three brands seem to be the ones that do. There's an Innova brand, which is an Australian brand, which I'm not sure available here. Okay, there's no point spending this volume of Australian dollars for a device that only does that. Somebody showed me a device today on Twitter which had an airflow, a CADA, clean air rate about here only. I would not use a device that is too low. Probably aim for at least 300 to 500, and the higher the better. Here's the DIY option. I am trying to promote this. I think it should be. It's the Corsi Cube, started by Richard Corsi from Portland University in Oregon, now called the Corsi Rosenthal Cube because it's undergone some transformation. Originally, it was a box fan with one MERS filter behind. Then somebody made it into this way, but this is not the best one. The best one is this one. It's got 4 filters round, cardboard at the bottom, and fan at the top with a special shroud to optimize it. And this one blows air upward. This one sideways, not so recommended. Okay, so that's why it's called a Corsi Resentol cube right now. And this is the one I would recommend to you. It's powered, of course, so there's a power to your electrical socket for the fan power. Okay, there's some local people producing it. They're not producing it for sale, sadly. They're assembling it for schools to make schools. And I know that the cost that comes to them is about 300 ringgit. Okay, as opposed to a commercial air filter like these, which could easily cost you 1,500, 1,600 or higher if you buy a higher end one. Okay, so I'm recommending that we actually think about this, that we should make some of these. Okay, I've given you the link to the engineer who designed this. I have had a couple of chats with him. He's a good chap, and he has put up a web page telling you how to do this and what the devices he used. Okay, so that's the second one, filtration. The third one is sterilization. We can sterilize the air, kill the bug. So to sterilize the air, most people are using ultraviolet C. It's called UVC, use UV germicidal irradiation. There's either a central, which means we put it into the aircon unit, or there's the upper room irradiation, which means you put it in the upper space of your room. Okay. Now we are familiar with this one, and some of the doctors listening in might be familiar. This has been used for some time. This is the irradiation portable device. You put in a room, you run out, you activate it, and then it irradiates the room. Takes about 15 minutes to 30 minutes to, depending on the size and the capacity, to irradiate a room. It takes time. Okay, UVC doesn't work instantaneously. I've got an FDA link for people who want to read about the effectiveness. They do say that it damages exposure, that UVC damages skin and eyes, so you've got to be careful. UVC exposure is not harmless. Okay, you can't do this in your clinic room when people are around, and most doctors I know put it there. You don't need to leave it overnight. If you put a timer to your electrical device, then you can probably put it on for a period of time and then turn it off. Okay, so people are experimenting with this and putting it into the central air condition of a unit of a building, and this is a building that recirculates air. So you're breathing out, air sucked back into the aircon unit, comes here, gets sterilized, and comes back out as clean air. I have a little bit of concerns. One, of course, is how to put it in. It's not the easiest thing. You need an engineer to do this for you. I worry about how fast the air transits here. If the air transits too fast, the duration of action may not be long enough for the UVC to work. So you need to think these mechanics through. Some people are putting it into the split unit aircon. I think this is not effective at all. It's very transient. But people are selling this to you, and I don't think you should be conned into buying this one. I don't see any evidence in any literature right now for this to work. There is some literature for this to work, but the mechanics must be right. Okay. The one that's being sold extensively and many people are talking about is the upper room UVC germicidal irradiation. There's very, very good data for tuberculosis for this. But, does it work for COVID-19? I'm not sure. Basically, you put a upper room unit here. You hope the air, as you breathe, heats up, goes up, so it's sterilized, and it comes back down. So a unit might look like this in this room here. Okay, it's a simple device. The irradiation is up there. Doesn't seem to harm individuals. But there are two reviews. One systematic review looking at it, and both of them say, that consider as an adjunct. Okay, or quality data from experiments is still lacking. So basically, they are saying they're not sure yet whether this works. It's an adjunct. It cannot be your primary device to reduce COVID indoors. Okay. At the same time, people are selling a whole range of products. This is just a 5-minute search on Lazada and Shopee. They're selling this atom gun, which I get asked quite a bit. They're selling these things you hang around your neck. They're selling this liquid disinfectants or this herbal disinfectants, plus of course this UVC portable. Don't buy this UVC portable. You cannot just shine on your air like that and walk off. Okay, and it'd be dangerous for you if you're holding it. So most of this don't work. Please be discerning about this. Please try and find independent reviews. Again, quote from the University of Melbourne review that ionizer, plasma, ozone, photocatalytic oxidizer, precipitators, and disinfectant add-ons are unproven, untested technologies, can be dangerous, can degrade the air, and can produce ozone and ions, which may not be too good if you got asthma and stuff like that. So I think avoid buying this kind of products. Go for the ones that really work. So we have these three mechanisms. the best approach air. Uh, in a closed room, you have to use a portable air cleaner, and we could add as adjunct sterilize the air, which is the upper room UVC or into central aircon. Again, we can mix and match. All right. So you could be having change your central aircon such that it brings in fresh air. You know, you have a mechanism to suck air out and bring in more fresh air. You open your windows and doors, use a portable air cleaner and your UVC lamp. So that's a good review from Science Direct talking about different mechanisms as well. The mechanism you use for a different room will have to be different. For example, if you're a doctor in a clinic waiting room, that will be different. Waiting area is different from the clinic room where you see the patient because the ventilation is different in each space. Now, I'm going to come and talk about two simple mechanisms to summarize what we can do. First of all is a calculation method. You will need to do this in a room, a closed room, okay, where you cannot monitor the CO2 really, okay. You could try it in a mixed room as well. In an open room, you can use this as well, no problem. So your target, 6 air exchanges per hour. First thing, you calculate your room volume, the length, width, and height of the room. So let's say I had a room 12 by 6 by 3 meters, that's a meter squared, the cubic meters, of my room. I then determine the air exchange required. So you multiply by 6, quite simple. So that is the volume of air I need to exchange per hour, okay, for that room. So if you have a capability to measure fresh air, please ask an engineer. I don't have the capability, then we could do that. But if we don't have that capability or in a closed room, then we have to use a portable air cleaner. We check the CADA, the clean air delivery rate, and the noise levels. Okay, so we fix the CADA and the noise levels together. All right. So, for example, in this room with 1,296 cubic meters per hour required, you need 2 cozy cubes, a 4 filter type, which cost you about 3 to 4. I mean, about 2 of them will cost about maybe 600 to 800 ringgit to make. Or you buy 2 to 3 units of a Xiaomi air purifier, which costs you about 2 to 3,000, and then you're fixed. Okay. Of course, I would recommend you still monitor your CO2. Even in a closed room also, I would say monitor your CO2 because if it's really high, you need to think about what's happening in that room. But definitely, if you've got some open space, the CO2 will then tell you, and you keep it below 800, preferably below 600. So this is one method. Okay, maybe a little bit complicated, but not too difficult if you can measure the room. Okay, and works in a closed room. All right, open room also can. If you don't want to do that, then you just use your CO2. This will not work in a completely closed room, only work in open room. So you keep your target as a CO2 only. You forget about the room dimensions, okay? So your target is below 800. So first you buy a reliable CO2 monitor and you watch the levels. Okay? You keep it monitoring all the time. You see with people, activities, and you, of course, try different ventilation methods. You open the door, you open the windows and check your CO2 levels. If that is fine and your CO2 drops, even if people coming and going and fine, then you're set, you're fine, your ventilation is optimized. If it's not possible, or in a closed room, as I said, it won't work. Sorry, this is a mistake here. Then you have to insert mechanical ventilation. You have to bring in air into that room and you check your CO2 levels. And the CO2 is still high, then you need to add a portable air cleaner to this. And finally, you can check your CO2 level throughout the day, and especially at peak usage and see. So you go step by step to see which works best for you. Some of you may want to miss step 3 because you may not want to put a mechanical ventilation. You may jump straight to using a portable air cleaner, and that's fine as well. Okay. Now, in the document that I've shared with you, there are lots of links, but I have at the end summarized a small table of the best links, I think. There is a Harvard air calculator, which is useful. There is the Spanish review of CO2 monitors in case you want to buy a different monitor apart from the K-Moon one. Okay. There's a University of Melbourne air cleaner, which works best. Okay. There's this good webinar by David Allen, which I like. He's a health and safety person from Australia. I like that. But these last 2 are the ones I would strongly recommend to you. There's a lovely video on how to optimize air in a classroom, which will work for any room for that matter. They go through step by step, very sensible people, done it very nicely. And another guide here from the Spanish people on a step-by-step guide on how to fix a classroom. They went into a lot of detail, far more detail than I have. And so people who want more detail should consider here. But they also have simpler mechanisms in there as well. So I recommend these to you. Okay. Now, somebody asked me on Twitter today, he knew this talk was coming. He says, what to do when I'm traveling? So I talked about traveling. So there's this lovely study which has come out talking about air purifier use. And they not just looked at air purifier use for floor standing, but they also looked at tabletop, small ones like these, okay? And they used them in a simulated environment with airflow, with dummies, and they put them on the table to see. And the moment they put them on the table, a lot of the air did not cross over to the other person and was sucked in. So if you have a meeting with someone and you have to unmask, this is probably a very, very good device. They didn't mention which devices they bought, but I would buy ones with HEPA filter, buy from the reliable brands that the Melbourne people talked about. And I checked up, this is probably the cost of the tabletop filter. Okay, I will probably keep a CO2 monitor handy as well. So if I'm traveling, I have to go here and there. Maybe I'm running a clinic in another, hospital, or maybe I've got to move between different parts of the hospital or my office or the school. Then maybe you want to carry a small portable HEPA filter air cleaner with you, battery operated, mind you. And then you can use that to optimize the air around you. Always keep it as near to you as possible when you're using this. Okay. This could also be something you might want to take in your car. Maybe even Grab drivers should consider something like this, although they can just keep the windows down. The last option is, maybe buses should consider some of these for long haul buses. Okay. Finally, I want to talk about maintaining vigilance indoors and then take some questions. Please, if you practice these methods, you still must avoid overcrowding, as I mentioned earlier. Don't forget lifts, the pantries, and cubicles. Please optimize the quality of your mask, both the fit and filtration. Wearing a surgical mask alone may be insufficient, and especially avoid eating together with other people. That's when you unmask. Okay? And lastly, maintain your safety bubble. Make use of tests when RTK antigen tests when possible. So I use a KN94 mask from Korea. I have a face shield. I take precautions. Okay, and we need to maintain our social environment. We are working in this office environment or this clinic or this school. We must make sure that our family environments are safe, that these places are not places which are very relaxed where we can get infected and then bring it back to the office. So it's not just talking about ventilation, but talking about our trust, responsibility with each other. Okay? I say this especially because if you look at what's happening in France, Germany, Sweden compared to UK, they practice a vaccine plus strategy. UK just uses vaccine. They drop a lot of their mandates. And, these are highly responsible populations. They require masks indoors. They require vaccine passport to enter premises. They do a lot of frequent testing if you're unvaccinated. They restrict high-risk activities. They have fixed their ventilation and filtration. They use CO2 monitor compulsory, and they have secured their schools with bubbles and masks and distancing and ventilation. And they don't have the outbreak that UK is having right now. So I want to say that the things I'm talking about are critical, and ventilation is one of the very critical steps. Finally, I'd like to mention the SAGE document to you, where we talk about ventilation as a way of life post-COVID. I think it's time for engineers to design new buildings with good ventilation. It's time for us to invest long-term in ventilation for the next major pandemic. Also to improve, reduce our influenza risk, reduce the bugs we pick up from our co-workers and other people. And the SAGE have come up with a sort of a method to assess a room, rate the room, give it a color coding, and then you take the correct measures according to color code. So if you see a red color, maybe you choose not to enter that clinic or that office. If you see green, then you know that you can come in with minimal protection. If you see maybe a yellow, maybe you come in with a N95 mask, something like that. And I think we should consider some of these. I'll end by saying we should not return to work, not return to school, not return to our makan shop, the relief centers without fixing our ventilation. Thank you very much for listening to me, and let's take some questions.
Thanks for a fantastic talk, Amar. And it's so enlightening. And this is a very important point as we learn how to live with COVID. Amar had a fantastic talk about masks right at the beginning of the pandemic, even before masks were really compulsory. And, we are learning to live with that now. And I think we should pay attention to the air quality, which is actually not thought of as much as it should be. We had lots of discussions in our tech group for doctors, especially the CO2 monitors. And I think it's important that you brought up that there are fake ones on the
Mhm.
market.
Yes.
A few of us, me included, I suspect, because when you buy a cheap portable CO2 monitor which shows 1,000 all the time, then
Yes.
you know something is wrong.
Mm.
So I think the link to all Dr. Amar's documents and everything is in the description in the YouTube video below. So you take the link, and I think everything is there. So you can look at it in the video description. So there is actually a question from Dr. Ivan Shu. I think is trying to ask something about the clinic waiting area and the clinic door. So which direction should
I think
his
Ivan
air
knows the
blow?
answer to his question. Definitely, I will not suck air in from the waiting area into the clinic room. I think that's risky. I think
Mm,
you should have two directional airflows, Ivan. One where you suck air out from the waiting area outdoors, okay? Preferably to the back, because sometimes I notice many of the clinics have put chairs outside for people to wait. I wouldn't want to suck from the waiting room out to the outdoor where people are also waiting and push more viral particles to them. So maybe suck towards the back of your clinic if there's a back door and suck it out. Then secondly, for your own clinic room, if there is a window, there I would suck air, into your room, not outward. Okay, because if you suck air outward, then you're pulling air from your waiting area in. So I would put a fan with a Merce filter and suck in air coming into your room. That would dramatically improve your air quality.
yeah, thank you.
Alan, feel free to chip in. Huh? Okay, we're all
Oh
learning here.
yeah, yeah. I'm also thinking how to improve the air quality in my clinic. You know, if there's no windows, it's
Yes.
just central air conditioning. We're dependent on the engineers of the hospital
Yeah, I think
maintaining air quality.
you got to buy an air cleaner,
Mm,
and buy a reliable brand air cleaner. Look at the size of your room,
mm,
and buy you may need two if your room is very large. And the way to position it, if you're seeing patients, just seeing patients one and one, or maybe one accompanying relative, then you position it close to the two of you. You don't have to position it further away in the room. Then you optimize that air being sucked from the two of you closer. There is a possibility. I haven't had enough work on this, Alan. The small units on the table, if you're having a cross-table discussion, might also be another way to reduce that they are breathing to you and you're breathing to them. Yep. I think the protection goes both ways. Yes.
One doctor in the DOBBS forum said he puts a fan blowing air between him and the patient. Do you think that's enough?
I think if you're in a closed room, you're just circulating viral particles around. They're going to come back to you. You're fooling yourself. It's useful if you are going to see people in an old folks' home. I've recommended to old folks' homes that if you're meeting the people, you meet them outdoors, put a table, then you put a fan between them to blow air away from both of them. That is useful, but not in a closed room.
Yeah, so air quality is so important. I'm glad you mentioned about all the other things on the market
Mhm.
people buy. They ask you get this ozone air
Yes, that's right.
purifiers and all that. They're all
Mhm.
useless,
Yes,
right?
they're useless. There's no evidence for them right now. Okay.
So it's basically HEPA or the good filtration things. But I think the DIY one sounds very interesting.
It
If we
is.
can get the the base material, I don't know where you can source it from.
Actually, I do know Ellen, but I'm not keen for everyone to contact me and then for the. I'm actually trying. I'm trying to get
Mm,
somebody who's out of work, who's
mm,
reliable, prepared to do this for all of us. Well,
mm,
make it,
mm,
and then ship it, and maybe mark it up a little bit to make some money, and all of us can do it. I think if each of us want to do it one by one with everything, it might be a little bit, thing. I actually tried to persuade the engineer. He might be listening in. I've been trying to persuade him to take it on this, maybe find some
mm.
apprentice and do it as a small business. I told him all the GPs, all the doctors will pick up a unit from him.
If it is some plastic frame, maybe something can be 3D printed or something which
You
can.
see those four MERS
Uh,
thing can just be fitted together. You don't need anything
right.
extra. A cardboard at the bottom, which is your normal, cardboard you can get from any card box, and then you just duct tape them together. And then you put the fan on top. That's it. And you just cut another ring at the top. His instructions are quite clear on his website, worth going and looking at. The reason his is good is because we have difficulty buying the box fans here in Malaysia, the US box fans. So he's using a wall ventilation fan unit to do this. The minimum unit is a 14-inch. He's using 16-inch, but the minimum unit is a 14-inch fan for it to work. So he's given those details in the link that I've given in the document.
Okay, so the link is there as well. Yeah.
There's one Facebook user who said, I did a DIY air purifier using box fan, duct tape, and HEPA filter. Yes, that's what the cozy cube is all about.
You just stick the HEPA filter at the back of the box fan. And
yes, you can.
Yeah.
That one is very, very simple, Alan, but the noise level is slightly higher. The output is not so good. When you bring the four together, I understand from people who are engineers, it's better than the commercial ones. That means the four-sided cozy cube is better than any of the commercial brands out there, unless you're willing to pay, many thousands of ringgit. So I think it's a phenomenal device. By the way, those filters last about 6 months with that DIY one. So you just say, 6 months, you just take out your fan, buy new filters, plug it back together again, and off you go.
So they have to be changed. Yeah.
So Alan, in a hospital level or in a school level, if people are willing to, then I think they could get together. Somebody could be given a task to make this. See all the videos that I posted. I posted a number of videos in the link on how to make it. It's quite easy once you watch a few of them, and then maybe make it and then use it throughout the hospital or the clinic or the school or whatever building that we're in.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. I think it has to be affordable so that it can be mass adopted. Yeah. So you think there's a comment, if you use 4 filters together, it should last longer?
Definitely. One filter I'm not sure the duration of one filter. The 6 months I mentioned is for 4 filters. Quieter, more air exchange. About the CADA is almost 600, if I'm not mistaken. Huh? I've given something in the notes. Yeah.
Anyone have any other comments? Really, Amar, I must really thank you. You've been a fantastic contributor throughout the whole pandemic on just right from the beginning, gathering data, analyzing, providing solutions. And I think this is just another aspect. I think it's so important that we need to think about it and implement it. So this question, should it be HEPA 13?
So as I said, the HEPA is actually higher. It's about 17 and above for MRFs. So for the minimum issue is MRFs 13 or 14. That's the minimum you should use. But if you're nervous, then you use a HEPA filter, which is MRF 17 and higher. Even HEPA filters come in different grades. If you look at the chart that I showed earlier. So so the minimum is the MRFs 13, 14 rating. That's recommended.
Okay. Where can people buy HEPA filters?
You can buy them online. I've seen them online. Yeah.
Shopee,
Lazada, and so on. I think we can create a market for this. Again, we should try and push for a reliable market. We don't want some people to just put some paper together and call it a HEPA filter and sell it to us. Yeah.
That's a concern. I mean, buying from online stores is we get duped and maybe faked. And
that's why I suggested for the CO2 monitor, you go to the K-Moon official store on Shopee and buy it from there. That's reliable.
Yep.
Don't see many questions. It's interesting. Maybe I phased out people with too much technical details.
No. The details are there. People are downloading and reading the document now as we speak, I think. Yeah. I'll have to replace my fake CO2 monitor with I was so disappointed. But what is cheap, you have to expect. What is cheap?
Yeah, I remember once my wife and I bought 5, desktop small thermometers. We wanted to measure temperatures indoors. And then I set them all up together. We bought 5 because we don't know which one to buy. They're all dirt cheap. 3 I had to dump because, they were totally unreliable, very variable readings. Only 2 were reliable. Even then, after when I went and bought a branded one, it showed even better values than the 2, that I kept. So I think there is a place for quality, especially when you're looking at a sensor like this.
Somebody has posted some link. I don't know whether this is an ad to something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Again, you need to look at the quality of any air purifier that people sell to you. And I said, look at the filter they're using first, quality of filter. Secondly, look at the CADA, the amount of air exchange that's happening. Thirdly, look at the noise value, uh, the noise that they're going to do. So if the noise at maximum is too high and you have to bring down, then your CADA will come down. So you got to budget that in your thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it comes from US or Japan or China or Korea. I think it doesn't really matter. I don't think products from China are any inferior from anywhere else. You just got to find good quality products from anywhere that you buy them. Okay. There are lots of products being sold from the US which I wouldn't touch, which are herbal air purifying products, or this spray gun or that spray gun.
So it's a block from his relative who
Yeah.
lives in US, 20-inch square filters and 20-inch. Wow, that's big.
Yes, big. Yes, correct.
Mm.
You also need to think that if you got a small clinic room, you can't put too big a device in. Yeah. Yes, Ivan, I would recommend you read the sorry, okay,
That's
sorry about
on
this.
saw a portable negative
Yes,
pressure device be installed in any room in SGH.
yes, negative pressure device. No, I don't know enough about that. A negative pressure device, you know, I thought they were bigger and less portable than that. Sorry, cannot answer that
Yeah.
question. Alan, you know anything about that? You because of oncology background?
No, I don't know about any portable.
Yes,
Normally,
correct.
either positive or negative pressure, they are quite big.
Big, the
Yeah, I
whole
don't
room,
know
isn't
about.
it? That's what I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Don't
Sorry, can't
know.
answer
Can't
that.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Any
so
recommend?
Ivan, I suggest that you look at the Melbourne document that I mentioned and go to that link, read them. They actually looked at all the HEPA filter portable air purifiers that they had in their country. Some of them are sold in our country. And, I don't like to mention brands basically, but I would think the Xiaomi Pro is really a good device from looking at their data. Okay. The second one is one of the Samsung devices, which was tested in Australian hospitals and found to be excellent, but a lot more expensive than the Xiaomi one.
I'll wait for the 11/11 sale.
Maybe a bit late, you might get infected.
10/10. No, no, we don't wait. Don't
Yes.
wait. Dr. Wong asked if I have a window open to outside space, do I still need to open the door?
So Wong, it depends where you're working and what kind of setting. Let's say you're working in, and I'm assuming here now this, I know Wong In, so she's probably working in a hospital setting, in a clinic in a hospital setting. Okay, so you have a window open to the outside. Now it depends how your airflow is going to happen, Wong In. If air is being sucked from the hospital into your under the door, into your clinic and out the window, that's not good for you. Okay, that's not good. So if opening the door encourages that kind of airflow, I would close the door. I would check my airflow. Let's suggested actually you could tie some small strings at the window that might tell you how the air is moving, that sort of thing. He uses he cuts away the strings from his mask, and he just sellotapes them to the window as a cheap mechanism. Uh, I would suggest, Wong In, the better mechanism is to get a portable box fan with one HEPA filter at the back or MERS filter at the back, stick it at your window and suck air in to your room. And that'll be thing. If you're high enough up, then you don't have to worry about the filter even, because it's clean air up there. And you just whatever clean air we have in Malaysia, you suck in that air and you dilute your air, and that will push air out from your room actually. Okay, so that's probably a better mechanism.
So you showed
for
that
the-
picture with the
Yes,
fan with the
correct.
filter.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. But you can use a stand fan if you think that one is too fragile, might drop. A stand fan will work as well.
Okay. Nick Loy has some comments. The CADA measurement, if you're a closed system, then I can understand the air exchange, but in open system, device pulls air from the area around it more vigorously rather than from far. So places further from the device may not be filtered or so effectively filtered. So just having a number doesn't determine the number of air exchange. for the entire room.
Agreed, Nick. That's a wise comment. In a closed room, the CADA is easier to understand. In an open room where you open the windows and doors, there's a lot of other exchange happening. So if you add the air purifier in an open room, keep it near to where you are, nearer to your workplace where a lot of conversation is going on. Okay, I suggest Nick, have a look at that second last link that I gave you, which is a school video. They talked about placement of devices inside a school, in a school classroom as well. How they would place devices. They had phenomenal engineers. I wish we had some of these guys coming and advising us. I'm not an engineer, so I don't claim to be one. So you could place it in different parts of the room and optimize ventilation, even though you are bringing fresh air in. So it's possible to do. Okay.
With forced ventilation, wouldn't the draft bring the virus from one area to the person who is in the draft path?
Agreed. So we have to think about that. And we don't want to create a draft in a place where there are many people moving from one person to the other. So definitely long term, we want some central air coming down and then spreading outward. So some people place the mechanical ventilation fans the air purifier fans against the wall, so they blow air that way, suck in air and dissipate the draft against the wall. Okay, that's some mechanism that people use.
Yeah, I just want to comment about those monitors, CO2 combined with PM or particulate monitors. They're actually very useful because I think that I actually got a particulate monitor which is actually quite good. It came from China. It was only thing that everything was in Chinese, so I had to use Google
Right.
to translate. But it had also measurement of volatile organic compounds. So I think in terms of indoor pollution, it's actually quite good. And
Yes.
when the haze comes back, this PMs will be very good. So you get one which is combined CO2,
Yep.
PM, and VOC monitors would be excellent, good value for money, I think.
Yeah.
Provided
The PM2 is also an indicator of COVID spread because those are where the particles, are spreading. It gives us an idea as well, besides the CO2 as well.
Yeah. So a combined monitor with all those values would be very useful. And they're not that expensive, provided they work.
Correct.
Under 200, I think it was the K Moon you're saying from the
K Moon for the CO2 under 100 actually.
under 100. Okay.
Not bad.
Okay. Any other questions, everyone? Now, this is an excellent talk, Amar. I think we will have to try to make it into CPD. So we'll apply, and then later we can restream it again, and those who watch may be able to get a point. Yeah.
Yep.
I think this is very educational and very instructional, I think, and practical as well, I think. Yep. Quite a lot of viewers have come, live viewers. Yeah. But the videos will remain online, so you can watch it even though you didn't catch it live. So either on YouTube or in our Facebook group and page. But to help the video spread by the YouTube and Facebook algorithm, please, if you enjoy this, please smash the like button, because somehow if you click the like button, more of your friends and colleagues know about the video. So that will help with
there's one more query there at the bottom.
Yeah.
She wants so I think that just go to Shopee, look for KK Moon official shop. That's it. You'll find it.
Double K, Double
K Moon, yes. And then from within their shop, you look for their CO2 monitors and choose the one that you want. Okay.
So there were those plain CO2 monitor as monitors with PM as
agreed.
well.
Yes, I only looked inside Shopee, but I'm sure they might have a shop in Lazada or elsewhere as well. No particular allegiance to any online portal. Yes.
Yeah, but be careful. There are fakes and they don't work very well. Yeah. Any last? We are almost at our mark, and I think we have taken a lot of Amar's time. Thank you, Amar, for being a pediatrician. You become a fantastic COVID warrior. I promised you, I have to reward you with this thing. I'm going to send to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the smart doctor card, which will work with you're listed in our physician website,
Mhm, mhm.
though if you probably need to update it.
Update it. Yes, yes,
Yeah, this is our physician website where doctors can list for free if you are a GP or a specialist working in hospital or public or private. As long as there's a fixed working address, feel free to list that. There's a submit button, submit entry, and you can see at the upper right.
yeah,
And if you submit, and then you will be correct, you have an account with which you can edit and change your details, say your email or phone contacts change. I created this site as a way for doctors to network better, because a lot of us are in like social groups like Telegram or Facebook, and we don't really know more about where we are, where we work, and so on, and how to reach out to each other. So, Amar, I'll be sending this to you.
thank you.
So this works by NFC. So you tap on the other individual's phone, your listing will come out on the person's phone. Or if it doesn't have NFC, then there's a QR code where the person can scan and get the link. So it's environmentally friendly. We don't have to print business cards or
Yes,
contact cards and give it to everybody. So just one card, tap and share, and your contact goes over. So yeah, so I think like Ainun who says thank you, and Ivan who says thank you, and I'm sure every one of us thanks Amar for this fantastic talk. So we would like to give him a break now, and feel free to share this video and download the document links which are in the video description below. So you go to the video description, everything, the links to all the things he shared, Amar has shared in his talk, right? Okay, so David, one more comment from David Kong. There's a social enterprise with the aim of making clean air affordable.
yep.
Cheapest product is actually strapping HEPA filter to a fan. Yes,
Yeah,
of course.
that's the Corsi idea. That's the Richard
Yeah.
Corsi's idea that many people are adopting. I just mention his name and call it the Corsi Cube because our gentleman is the one who thought it out. But
Yeah.
I think he's happy that people are just adopting it.
Yeah, I'm very glad, and there's a lot of people with these social concerns who create these
Mm,
cheap filters for schools, and
mm.
and there's a lot of the need is there. I think it
I,
currently
I,
is
I
unmet.
think if I'm a parent, I want to fix my child's classroom before they go back.
So we are talking about vaccinating children before they go back. We should also talk about air
Ventilation.
quality of
Mhm.
classrooms. Yeah, precisely. And even our parliaments, we should do away, as you said, do away with the plastic barriers. We talk
Yeah.
about the air quality. Yeah. Especially all of them are going to be unmasked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we shall end it here. So Amar, thank you once again. It's been a
Thanks, Ed.
fantastic talk. Every time we have you on, we learn a lot. I've learned a lot. Okay, so I think we'll end the broadcast here. So we'll wish everyone good night, and
Good night.
have a great weekend ahead. Take care. Stay safe.